2 new orcs, 2 new Space Marines units. How the heck are these things going to be influencing list building? Let's get into it. We got brand new units that have been excited. Guys, I am Jonathan Arkin of Happy Corrupting Wargaming, and on this channel, we turn you into a competitive beast. I'm a doctor of chiropractic neurology, I'm an MMA fighter, and I'm coaching clients to become the best players in their respective countries. We currently have 4 clients who are on their national teams representing their individual countries at the World Teams Championships. So we're really proud of that, and I'm excited to bring this information to you guys so you can master the game of Warhammer 40k. So we're going to dive into Warcom today because we've got 4 brand new units, and I'm going to give you the way that I'm going to start thinking about these units applying to the Orks and applying to the Space Marines. 2 of them are for the Orks, 2 of them are for the Space Marines. I'm going to give you my thoughts on them and how they're going to influence list building in the upcoming 11th edition to make your armies spicier and even more interesting than they currently are. Just as a preview, all these units are actually cool, and I think they're better than what some people are saying. I hear some people having some fairly negative thoughts on these, and I'm going to give you like the devil's advocate position of why some of these things might not be the best units in the game, but why some of them might be absolutely incredible. So here we freaking go. Let's rock and roll. We're going to start off with the dakkarig, which does actually win the award of being the sickest, most dope new model out there. Even if you're not an orc player, this might be a model that you try to get because this thing is just freaking cool. But basically, the way this thing is working is we have a new dread-ish style model for the orcs. It's going to be a move 8. See a toughness 8, 3 up armor save with a 5 up invulnerable save, and 11 wounds, which does make it a relatively durable unit. It's a little bit more durable than your standard battle tank, for example. It's going to have that sweet OC3, and it has interesting shooting for orcs. Now, if this was 10th edition, I would say right off the bat that this unit was amazing. The fact that it's going to be an 11th edition where cover changes makes me think it is decent, but scary in its application. So let me kind of break all this down. So its offensive profile is pretty dang good. The Blitz Cannon, it's a heavy sustained 1 with 8 shots, ballistic skill 5 up, strength 7, AP 2, damage 2. This is incredible shooting for orcs, especially when you consider that sustained hits 1. And its ability gives it an additional 6 attacks on this shot if it's shooting at something that's not a monster or vehicle, meaning this is really good for like infantry and elite infantry. With that, it brings its total for up to 14 shots with sustained hits. That means you're getting like almost 8 hits on average out of this thing, which is pretty good at strength 7, AP 2, damage 2 for orc shooting. The problem here is that the cover is different in 11th edition. And in 11th edition, if you have cover, you're actually just -1 to the ballistic skill. So if you don't have an ability to ignore cover with this unit, you're hitting on 6s, which makes that shooting really, really trash. Now, I know, to kind of offset this, it does have the heavy keyword. And the heavy keyword is significantly more impactful in 11th edition than it was in 10th edition, or has been in 10th edition, because now, so long as you don't move further than 3 inches, you do get to benefit from heavy, which is a +1 to hit. So even if you're -1 to your ballistic skill, if you're still +1 to hit, you're still hitting on 5s, and it's actually sitting kind of pretty. So depending on how much we can position these things to take advantage of only needing that 3 inches of movement, which admittedly a little bit skeptical, this unit could be fantastic. Now, it does have another gun, which also reveals some interesting information about the orcs coming up as well. And this is the rocket launcher, which also gets the heavy keyword. Very cool. Has 6 attacks, ballistic skill of a 5 up, strength 10, AP 2, damage 3. This is cool because previously rocket launchers have been strength 9, which is kind of a bad breakpoint for being like an anti-elite infantry or even an anti-vehicle weapon. So this is actually really nice that they get the extra bonus strength, which does make it significantly more impactful. So I do like this unit. Now, one of the really interesting things about this is previously, Warcom said something about this unit that is no longer here. Warcom has been editing their own articles. So right here where you see, let me make sure I'm showing on my screen. Yeah. All right. So next, right here where you say, otherwise, the dakkarig is a potent walker with some impressive stats. For a model of its size, it can soak up blah, 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 blah. Previously, the article did say that it was a character and that it would be a great leader for your dread mob army. Warcom then, like the next day, actually edited the article to get rid of that piece of information. Probably because the keywords doesn't have the character listed here. So I think that might have been something where they're going to have the dakkarig be one thing on release in 11th, and it will be another thing with the Orks Codex. That might have been like a preview for us coming up. So that was a little bit fascinating. But anyway, as far as I'm seeing with this unit, assuming that we're going to actually be able to make use of its heavy keyword, this will be a great and welcome addition to the Ork roster, assuming we can get it at a reasonable points cost. And as far as I can tell, a reasonable-ish points cost for this would be anywhere between that 110 to 130 point level. I would not be taking this at above that. I mean, you could just do a direct comparison to other units at that points cost, and it's like it just wouldn't be worth it if it was anywhere above that. Now, this is obviously agnostic of information about detachments and enhancements and stratagems that might buff it further, but just as a base profile, if this is going to land between that 110 and 130 point level, I think we're going to be seeing these on the tabletops, and they're a really interesting choice. Let's talk about the next Ork unit, and then we'll be getting into the Space Marine units afterwards. So this is going to be the Wartrakk. Wartrakk, once again, freaking awesome looking model. I'm really excited about this thing. It's super dope. It has some interesting stats as well. Currently, the movement is going to be at 12. Its toughness is 6, 4 up armor save, and a 6 up invulnerable save. 7 wounds, OC 3. Relatively durable. I think this is supposed to be basically the same profile as like the Invader ATV for the Orks or for the Space Marines. So this is like the Orks version of that. And when we look at its abilities, it has a custom shooter, which is just trash shooting, and then it has a rocket launcher. And this rocket launcher doesn't get the heavy keyword, and it doesn't get flak 6 shots, but it does get D3 plus 3 shots. So still no blast keyword on those rocket launches, and it is Shield Strike 10, AP2, damage 3. So without the heavy keyword, this one's weapon is probably pretty trash, because in 11th edition, we're basically always going to be in cover, which means you're going to be hitting on 6s. So it's pretty trash. But it does have a really interesting and very cool ability that I think is going to synergize exceptionally well for the Orks. So if you read its ability, in your shooting phase, when this unit has resolved its attacks, select one enemy unit hit by one or more of those attacks, and that enemy unit is now suppressed. And until the start of your next command phase, while the unit is suppressed, it has -1 to hit rolls. So this is going to make your enemy units -1 to hit. This is both in melee and in shooting, which becomes actually a very powerful ability, especially stacked with the new cover rules for 11th edition, where people will be at -1 ballistic skill when you have cover. So it's going to take your generic Space Marine units, which have a ballistic skill of 3 up, from hitting on 3s to actually hitting on 5s when you stack this with the new cover rules, which does make me think this is actually going to be a very interesting unit. Now, a little bit more behind this, I just want to kind of feed you just a little bit more. This might not be that useful, because if you're hitting on 6s, there's every reality where you just don't roll a 6 to hit with this unit. Like you don't have that high volume of shots. I mean, with that big shooter, it's a range 18, rapid fire 2. That's only 2 shots, and that's D3 plus 3 shots. It's very easy to have only 6 shots with this, and that's not hard to not roll a 6 when you roll 6 dice, which means that it's pretty easy to not actually be able to practice ability because you do have to hit with it. That being said, this, as long as this unit comes in cheap, I'm talking like that 50 to 60 points level limit, then this is going to be really interesting. Now, once again, this was a really interesting thing because this is another Warcom edit. Previously, this thing had the support keyword, and it was talked about that it could be run either solo by itself or attached to a unit of Warbikers, and that has so that wording is still here, where it says more wounds, more better guns, and surprisingly bulky. What's not to love about the new Wartrakk? Use it to give a nearby unit of Warbikers some heavy support, or run it alone as a cheap harassment unit. Either way, you'll be hurling rocks with great enthusiasm. So this would suggest that it does have the support keyword, meaning it could lead Warbikers, and it used to have the support keyword when this was first released, but they edited that out. Once again, I think that was just them trying to make sure like they're staying steady with like what units are there on release and what units are going to be there with the Codex release, which will be more updated for 11th edition. So don't get distracted too much if you see like a little bit of editing in these Warcom articles. That's just I think the team trying to keep expectations set for what's going to be on release versus what's going to be with the new Codex. All right, let's talk about the new Space Marines. So as far as right now, both the Orks, I think, are winners. I think these are both good units that I'm excited to start fielding my army. It's going to give us some good options. Now let's get into the Space Marines. Space Marines have one great option and one that, some people are not excited about, but I think is better than people are considering. All right, let's zoom across the battlefield in the updated Land Speeder. Now, one of the most disappointing model releases I think that GW had going into 11th edition, the Land Speeder, which kind of looks exactly like the old Land Speeder used to look, is here. Now, it does have a really, really impressive stat line. And I'm talking hyper impressive stat line. Move 14, toughness 8, 3 up armor save, 9 wounds, leadership 6, OC 3. So actually relatively similar to the dakkarig, significantly faster, but also less durable. So it doesn't have the invuln like the dakkarig does, and it's has 9 wounds instead of 11 wounds. So it is less durable than the dakkarig, but it's way, way faster. Now, when we look at its weapons profile, it gets 3 weapons. It has a multi-melta, which is Strange 18, 2 attacks, Ballistic Skill 3 up, Strength 9, AP 4, D6, and it is Melta 2. This is a interesting profile because this is suggesting that we're not going to see the strength of Melta guns increase in 11th edition. However, with the new ingressing rule where you can ingress 8 inches away, it means that you will be able to come within Melta range when you come out of an ingress. So big buff to Meltas, even though they're not going up in strength, I think some people really wanted them to. And then it has a Storm Fury missile launcher, which is effectively a las cannon. And then it's got the Onslaught Gatling cannon, which remains unchanged. And you can swap out the Onslaught Gatling cannon with the Heavy Flamer. Now, this is actually a really, really good weapons profile for what is effectively going to be a skirmishing unit. If Space Marine sees this at like 110 or less, this is going to be an incredible unit that you're going to freaking see spammed. If we're seeing this coming in at the same points cost as, say, like the Storm Speed or Hail Strike, which is never really taken, that 115 or below, then yeah, this land speeder freaking rocks. This is an incredible profile, especially when you combine it with the new land speeder detachment that we've already seen, where they can ingress in turn 1. That does make this actually quite fearsome. It's very fast, and it has a very cool special rule as well. Purgation Run. In your shooting phase, after this unit has shot, it can make a normal move of up to D6 inches. If it does, until the end of the turn, this unit is not eligible to declare a charge. The reason why this is cool is with its massive movement characteristic of 14, it's going to be able to get into positions where it can get a good angled shot on your opponent, and then just reactive move or scoot and shoot. So it's now out of the opponent's line of sight, so the opponent will not be able to shoot it back, which is a very, very cool ability. So I actually really like the Storm Speeder. I think this thing is incredibly powerful. Just as a little bonus, in case you guys hadn't seen it, they also updated the fly rules. And the fly rules are going to be so much better in 11th edition than they were in 10th edition. They're not going to be quite as OP as it was in 9th edition. But now what happens, when you have 5, you don't have to take that stupid protractor out and like try to estimate like how much movement it actually takes to get up and over. I don't think I ever actually saw anyone accurately calculate that. I know I certainly didn't. So in 11th edition, they just simplified the fly rules. Now you can move through terrain, and you just take a -2 penalty to your movement characteristic. It's much cleaner, much easier. It does slow the models down a little bit, but it makes fly very usable and very, very interesting. So I think that was a really, really good move. Let's talk about the last of the new units that have been released. This is going to be the new Eradicators with the Heavy Bolters. Now, this is one of the other units that I think the internet pretty much memed on pretty hard when Games Workshop released them. I actually like them. I think they're cool. I also kind of understand why people were memeing on them. It's like, yeah, Eradicators with Heavy Bolters. Isn't that a heavy intercessor? So I do understand the feedback on that. But let's take a look at this unit's profile, and we're going to kind of break some things down. So it's a 3-man squad. It comes in 3 mans, and they all have Heavy Bolters. So it's going to be, when you look at the Heavy Bolter profile, it is 36-inch range. It does have Heavy, so moving 3 inches or less, and they only move 5 base anyway, so it's pretty easy to get the Heavy, I think, or relatively reasonable to get Heavy with them. Ballistic Skill 3 up, Strength 5, AP 1, and Damage 2. And remember, with the new cover rules in 11th edition, cover doesn't give you armor save anymore, so AP 1 is a real AP. So that's actually a reasonable AP for a weapon to have now. It just is the -1 ballistic skill. But if they're getting, their heavy benefit, they're still hitting on 3s, blah, blah, blah. All right. Then we read their ability. Their ability in your shooting phase, when this unit is selected to shoot, you can select one non-monster vehicle unit visible to it. And while making attacks, this unit's heavy bolters that target the selected unit have Blast 1. Blast 1, as far as I can tell, when we read down at the bottom, it says adding Blast 1 means that against a 5-man infantry team, you'll get 12 shots instead of 9. So 9 is what they would typically have. So I think Blast 1 means that for every 5 units you're shooting into, you're going to get +1 shots. So it also goes on to say that if you're shooting into, 20 boys, that's 21 shots, which means, yeah, it should be about 4 shots. So Blast 1 just means for every 5 models in the enemy unit that you're shooting, you're going to be getting an extra shot or an extra attack. So they get Blast 1 with Heavy Bolters. It's actually a pretty dang effective anti-infantry tool. I kind of like it. It does remain to be seen if these are actually going to be usable or if it's just a meme right now. But I see more applications to this than I think a lot of people do, because a lot of people, I think, are filtering this information via current 10th edition rules. And via current 10th edition rules, AP1 in shooting is basically AP0 because everyone has cover. But the cover rules are very different in 11th edition, meaning that AP1 will be a true AP1. And if you have a 3-up armor save but you're in cover, you're still going to a 4-up armor save, which means that I think this is a relatively interesting unit, and I'm looking forward to trying them out. So, guys, these are the 4 new units. If I have to declare, like, what is the best new unit, I think the Land Speeder for the Space Marines is the best of the 4 that are released. The coolest, clearly the dakkarig. Hands above, easily the dakkarig. And then I think the one that is the most interesting is probably that wartrakk, because I think that's going to be the biggest benefit to any army. Simply being able to stack that -1 to hit with the plethora of -1 ballistic skills is going to be a really big boon to the Orks. So I do think that is a really, really good unit for the Orks. So with that, this was today. I hope you guys enjoyed all of these new freaking units. Tune in later today because we are doing a live stream where I'm going to be going through a coaching match with one of my clients who's trying to learn a new army. So if you have been curious what a coaching match looks like, hop in, man, and hey, participate. You can ask questions. We'll answer all your questions during the live stream as well. We do this as a service to you guys to try to get you all, just better at Warhammer because we love you. Until next time, crop on. Bye-bye.